we sign them after? Okay.
I'm just going to
Budget cuts.
After.
Now. Those were better.
about right.
I'm sorry.
And the lightsabers are
They're
way
just
better.
better,
Way
yeah.
better. I'm with you 100%. Let's save money for the teachers.
Plus, we got rid of the camera in the courtroom, did you notice that, above the TV? But that camera that's like that,
Right.
it's not there anymore. I don't know if they probably put that in during COVID.
Why you take it out, though?
I don't know if they used it someplace else. I was gonna ask him, just took my mind.
Just one thing.
When I had carpal tunnel, I think it just, I let it go too long, and had bled into that. Go ahead and get started. Let the record reflect that all members are present and accounted for. Rise and uncover, say the pledge. Kirsten, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing we have on the agenda is public hearing.
Mr. President, we posted the tentative agreement on our website, and of course, I've shared that with the board. Also, the new salary schedule. The reopener this year was just for money. It was, not related to language in the collective bargaining agreement. And we needed to redo the salary schedule to be compliant with the ERB board and update our salary schedule, and we did that. The new starting salary for both bachelor's and the master's degree teachers will be $40,000, which moves up from $35,750 for the bachelor's degree to $40,000, and from $36,900 to $40,000 for the master's degree. We also have had several teachers that over the years had not been, as we know, and school districts across the state have worked to move those teachers up that did not get years of service over the past years. Basically what happened is there was a salary schedule that was built, not only in North Lawrence, but other school districts, that it was just very difficult or impossible for schools to fund that salary schedule and move everyone up. And over years, a lot of times stipends were given, or maybe it was something else was done differently. So in working with the NLEA and going through and looking everyone, we moved everybody up on the old salary schedule. And then once we got everyone that needed to be moved up on the old salary schedule, which I think doing that alone was at about $430,000 is what we needed just to fund that portion of it. And then once they moved up on the old salary schedule, we had to slide everyone over to our new salary schedule. So we slid them over to the new salary schedule to the next highest point, so they would receive additional funds as well. and so everyone will be on the new salary schedule. We would have liked to have, and I think nicely as we've went through this and we've at least addressed that problem of many of our teachers not being where they need to be on the salary schedule. Now that that's done, I think we did add some steps to the top of our salary schedule. The top teachers did move up $540 on the salary schedule. We would have liked to have went the 1540, another $1,000 step. But I think in looking at the overall funding, it was just something that we couldn't do. But we did agree to do an additional stipend. So at least they will, additional money for this year. So that will actually reflect a $1,000 raise as far as with the stipend plus where they are on that salary schedule. We will use that number to calculate TURF, Social Security, VEBA, and all the other benefits that go into a teacher's salary. So just on the money side of it, and this is approximate, obviously, as we look into the next school year and who's here and who's not, and a lot of it also depends which health insurance plan an employee would decide to take, and those different things. Obviously, also, some of our teachers, if they're newer teachers, we pay a higher percentage into their teacher retirement fund and some other percentages than we would a teacher that is more experienced and was almost grandfathered into the teacher retirement fund. So for the salary increases, we're looking at approximately $736,836. Almost $736,836. Our stipend or the additional money that we will be paying to the top end teachers to make sure that they get the $1,000 is right at $18,500 that would go to that top end teacher group. The TURF and VEBA Social Security benefits is right at $88,000. We did agree that as far as paying money into a health savings account for our employees, as we have looked at our insurance and we have the health savings plans, that is $100,000. And then the health insurance increase, we wanted to make sure that we covered by far the greatest percentage of that health insurance increase, and that is right at $380,000. So overall, we're right at $1.3 million, which I think if we look at this historically, it's been way too long since this type of raise has been given to the teachers, and we're excited that we've been able to do that. I think we do know that our funding or the revenue has not increased from the state, that isn't something that we have received additional revenue. This has been made possible because of the reduction in operations that we've been able to make as a school district, from partly the number of employees, but also the number of facilities, the number of buses, in lots of different ways that we have been able to, accrue cost savings. I think many people in the community had hoped that, you'd close the schools or that when some cost savings measures were done, that we would have this bucket of savings tomorrow, or it would be there next week for us to distribute as a board. But over the last year and a half of not paying expenses, not paying utility bills, not running buses, not having as many employees, we have been able to accrue savings, and this is now our ability to redistribute those savings. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to look at ways that we monitor our expenses No one likes to monitor their expenses. And it's a lot easier to do as we would like to do, or how our heart would want us to do it. But I think as we continue to look at different ways and monitor our expenses, will be beneficial, and I'm hopeful that we can continue to do the necessary things that we can to help our employees. A little bit, I think we are also exploring, and we'll hear a little bit later, but I think we need to look at other ways that we can bring revenue in. And I think I'm hopeful that the Early Learning Center, by taking the steps and having, new students and additional funding, it's a different type of funding than we would get from our traditional K through 12 students, but we do receive funding to educate and meet the needs of the early learning students at Playful Pathways. So I think we also explore it different ways to bring in additional funding to our school district. We've done that also in some ways through the Career Center. Some of the different programs and classes that we offer, the state provides additional funding when you provide those classes. So I present that to you. We've got it advertised. This is just a hearing really to get the information out there. My recommendation is that we would come back together on Monday, which is October the 24th, at 5:30 to go ahead and formally vote on the agreement. The teachers have ratified the agreement, so it'll just be us voting on it. They don't let us do it the same night. This is an additional step that they've put into the process. So if the board agrees to that on Monday night at 5:30, we can come back and that we'll just have that time and really just to vote, and should be a quick meeting to ratify.
Thank you. Any public comments on the tentative agreement with the teachers? Sure.
I was gonna ask this later on, but since he mentioned a few things, I'll go and bring it up now. Scott King, 3120 Benton Hill Road, Bedford. Back when, this last month, when we looked at the review for the next year's budget, you had some numbers up there about operating fund and educational fund. There's like a $2.2 million number is flying around up there. And one of the board members asked if that money was going to be able to be used to help pay for the teachers. And you said you didn't really know for sure yet because it depended on the head count that hadn't happened yet. But since then, that's happened, correct? Do you know what that head count is? I mean, where is it, up or down from last year?
We're down from last year. I'll have to look and see exactly what it is. But we can get you that information. We turn it in.
Was it that many?
Okay, you're guesstimating that night like 100. I think maybe it's close to that or a little more.
Yeah.
So let's say if it was 100 down, what would the state's revenue from that be to us if it was down by 100?
Depends on those students,
students,
Scott.
right, okay.
No, not the school. Depends on those students.
Right, whether they're 100%, 50%, and career students.
No,
and stuff, right?
it would depend some if.
So if we went the minimum amount, what would 100 student drop revenue?
Probably 7,000, 6,800, 7,000 a student.
Okay, so that'd be around $70,000.
No.
No, no.
700.
$700,000. Sorry,
Very good.
$700,000. So we just gave an increase of $736,000 in salary. If we had that enrollment up, then we could have had additional $700,000 that potentially we could have paid teachers. Maybe some of those that didn't get the extra $1,000 could have gotten that. So I know either a couple weeks before or the same night, maybe a couple weeks before, you were initiating the negotiation with the teachers union and then maybe 2 weeks later, we did the budget hearing. Was the enrollment numbers known before you negotiated the salary increase with the teachers? Was that number known before you came up with this collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you also mentioned historically, it's been way too long since they've given us money. Do we know historically what the largest increase for teacher salaries we've had at NLCS? Does anybody know what that number would be? Did you look at that, understanding that this was a good amount? Did you look historically where it stands in past years?
The teachers had some more information than I had provided from their side. I think historically, if we look at the 1.3 number, they had looked in the last 10-year period. I think there was one time, I think it was about the 800,000 range.
Okay. Do you remember what year that was? No. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I did want to share, just because a lot of times, tonight we're having the 3E Expo out at the high school, and I think Lacey and Logan are that.
I think Lacey's back there,
Lacey
so.
here? Okay. Well, I knew possibly they were attending that, so I didn't know. Okay.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. A motion and a second.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll go ahead and call the regular session to order. Review for approval of minutes and executive session memorandum of minutes from September 15th, 2022, and executive session memorandum and minutes from October 6th, 2022. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Schlomrick makes the motion in a second.
Second.
Just call your seconds to the motion. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next up, board presentations. Playful Pathways, Shelley Pritchett.
In preschool, we always have to have a prize.
Aw.
It's not a cookie though.
Oh.
But I've got an option for that later, okay? So just keep listening. I'm just here with exciting news and updates, but Dr. Mungle told me a short presentation, so I'll reel it in. So Playful Pathways became a part of North Lawrence Schools to promote a foundation of early learning. It has been exciting. It has been during COVID. It has been during construction. Oh my goodness, it's been a ride. But it's really at an exciting place right now. So what I passed out to you goes with a small piece of research I want to give you before I go ahead with my presentation. I was reading a research study from Harvard University that talks about by the time a child blows out their candle on their 6th birthday, 90% of their brain is formed. It doesn't mean that it's not still changing, it's not still making new pathways, but 90% is formed. And North Lawrence Schools has stepped up to provide early childhood education ahead of many other school systems and states and places, and it's thrilling. So you have a token from me to remember that in your little sack this evening. When you see me out, when you see everything that's going on down the hill, and when you hear all the glee on the playground, and when you see those messy pictures on Facebook, that everything we're doing is forming that brain, that 90% of the brain that's going to carry that individual to kindergarten, to elementary, on through high school, on through life. I've probably got school board members down there right now and maybe a school superintendent. I don't know. I hope there's somebody down there that's going to take my job because I'm getting old. So it's exciting. So to Dr. Mungle, to Mr. Tanner, to Donnie Zalman, and the entire facilities team, to my principals, Mrs. Winsack currently and Mrs. Storms prior, to my amazing staff. And in order to keep this short, that's all the only words I can say right now, but I could go on about them forever. If you want to know about amazing staff, talk to Shelley Pritchett about hers. To Mrs. Redmond, Mr. McNabb, our ECE teacher Beth Felt and her ECE students, certainly to having a school board who has a love for its community to bring not just education but childcare to it. I thank you. I thank you from me, and I thank you from the kids. And I'm going to tell you about this week, where we are right now. On Wednesday of this week, we had our final inspection for our license. And it was big because during the period of our provisional license, we've had a lot of construction in the building. We've moved out of the building to Parkview for the summer, back into the building, not into our current classes, but into some classes that we could temporarily be in. Now we're moved into our classes. So it's been quite a journey. And in about a 4-hour inspection with me trailing around our inspector, we passed our licensure. We had no corrective actions, which is wonderful. She was very impressed with our school, with our classrooms, with our vision of what's coming, with our inclusion program, with the fact that we are truly striving to be a model of both high-quality early education and childcare, so our families can get that in one place. So just to say that you had a great conversation with your licensing consultant is probably not something every child care director gets to say, but I get to say that, and I get to say that because of this amazing support. So it's a huge deal, and I just wanted to highlight some of the reasons it's a huge deal. Because of our striving to get to this milestone, which is licensure, we will be able to offer so much more to the community in a way that anyone can pay for it, anyone can come. So because of our age span, which is now 6 weeks to 6 years, we're going to be providing kids with a lot of needed continuity in their early childhood years. So that's going to keep our kids secure. That's going to keep our kids learning where they are most comfortable, transition from place to place. We're going to know our kids very well. We're going to know where they are developmentally, and we're going to be always looking at their best next step. Through the license, we can offer services quickly to children who are in need, who are a part of our child and protective services. So children who might be removed from their home and moved into foster care and need child care will be able to quickly come to us now that they're licensed. We can provide that care, we can give it to them consistently, and we can give it to them all day because we're licensed, and we'll get reimbursed for that through their voucher program. We'll have our voucher program up and running. I signed the first one today, and Kim Morris, yes, she took a picture. I'll send it to you all. That voucher is providing for some of our families who are lower socioeconomic status, and they need that to be able to come to this kind of a quality facility, a facility that has curriculum, a facility that has a state-of-the-art playground, a facility that has a STEAM program through Project Lead the Way, opening up our doors, again, greater throughout our entire community. So the partnership for high-quality early childhood and high-quality child care is essential. So another fact, I didn't want to throw too many numbers out tonight, but 61% of children under the age of 5 are in care outside their home. So it's really important that the care they're receiving outside their home provides what they need for their school readiness and for their future. We have more classes. That's going to help our ECE students that are coming over through the Career Center to have more experiences with a wider span of children because we're going down to that infant program now. So that's great. Also having more classes lets them spread out, get to spend more time in room and get to know the children. So we're really excited about that as well. This year, in the midst of all this, we also pushed our inclusion program full-blown this year. Every child in our center who does have an IEP is in a general class for whatever part of the day is appropriate for them. Then we also have a resource room that gives us a smaller area when children need a smaller setting or a setting that we can control in a different way, or some small group. So that's another thing that's just moved a step every year and is so exciting. It's also opened the door for us to provide childcare, to extend that day for a lot of our parents who couldn't find childcare elsewhere because of their child's special need or their child's medical need. We've been able to bring those families in now, and they pay for a half a day of childcare after their special services conclude at noon. So all those things have been really exciting. My short time is probably just about up, but I'm here to invite you to our open house. So on Thursday, October the 27th at 6 o'clock, we're going to have a ribbon cutting down at Playful Pathways. It should be easy for you to find because you're here and it's only right down the hill. I want you all to come. We're going to have cookies. I did not bring pictures tonight, even though David kindly told me he would put them up because you have to come see it. A picture's worth a thousand words, but you've got to come meet my people. You got to come see my families. You've got to come experience it. You've got to come inside and just feel it and enjoy it. There will be artwork. There'll be examples of things we're doing with curriculum for you to see, so you can truly know more about the brain research behind the things that we're doing. So I'll see you there, and there'll be cookies.
Thank you.
So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Next up, North Lawrence Career Center, Amy Redmond.
Be tough following that, won't it?
Well, I was just thinking that my fellow educators will agree with me that you now get to see the distinct difference between the elementary world and the secondary world. She brought gifts and reminders, and I'm reading my notes off of my phone. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to come in and speak. I wanted to give you a little update of the things that are happening out at the Career Center. We have 11 shared time programs, and I can happily say that shared time would be the ones that are a half a day and students from all of our sending schools can be a part of. We had 4 empty seats total in our first year programs. Out of all of those, we could have taken 4 more students. Then on top of that, you have to add in our engineering, agriculture, and our FACS programs, and those are 1-hour classes that are taught in the Career Center, along with Prep CC. So if we add all of that together, first trimester, I have 820 students walking into the doors of the Career Center. And that number will fluctuate a little bit second and third try, so we're very, very proud of that. 79 of those 820 are coming to us from our other sending schools, and that's a number that is over double from what we ended with last year. I have to brag on Assistant Director Stephen McNabb and 6 of my instructors who attended the Indiana Association of Career and Technical Education Conference the last few days before fall break. They actually gave up their Friday and Saturday morning to attend that conference and came back just energized and excited and to see the collaboration. Most of those were my new instructors. You hired 5 for me over the summer out of a staff of 19, but they have hit the ground running, and one of them is standing over there. So Mr. Van Landingham has done a great job with mass media productions. We're trying to update the program title. Not that there's anything wrong with radio and TV, but if you talk to a high school student now, radio and TV, what? So we're going with mass media productions with that. Dr. Mungle mentioned the 3E Expo, so I think that's where I left my printed copy of the notes, was on that table. There were over 50 vendors there. That was a combination of the business and industry partners from the Career Center, colleges, and our military recruiters, and I heard awesome conversations between our high school students, their families, and those people talking about future plans, and we saw everyone from freshmen to seniors there tonight. We're very, very proud to be a part of making those connections. And along with that, we announced that we're hosting our first ever during the school day job fair in February. So we're going to bring in our vendors that are our business and industry partners in that February time, was to kind of help them start thinking about summer interns, because if they contact us in May, we have no students looking for jobs. They already have them at that point. So we're, again, really excited to be doing that and kind of giving our partners a captive audience, if you will, by being in the building during the day. One of our goals that came out of our comprehensive local needs assessment, the big review process that we're required to go through every 2 years by the state in order to receive our Perkins funds, identified a need to increase our female enrollment in high-wage and high-demand programs. So we're taking advantage of the new advisory structure at B&L to pull those students in during those advisory times where we're not pulling them out of their other classes, but yet they can come and experience what the Career Center is and get some hands-on experience with that. And I share all of this great news with you because we are very excited Along with Dr. Mungle's support, I have to thank him for answering all of my questions and my phone calls as we've went through this process. But we are exploring a partnership with our local fire departments to offer the fire and rescue program of study beginning in the 23-24 school year. So that would allow our students to have the capability to earn industry credentials of firefighting 1 and 2, their hazardous material awareness and operations, emergency medical responder, and emergency medical technician. Now, of course, not all of that will roll out in the first year. There are steps to get there, but we have great community support, and we're very excited to kick that off. And again, I have to say thank you for the district's support as we entered into those conversations. Any questions?
Any questions, Frank?
Is the 3E Expo something that we're gonna try to do every year?
Yes, this is our second year for that. We held it in the spring last year, and we thought we'd try it in the fall and see. Great turnout. As I made my rounds to talk with people, all of our vendors were very, very impressed with the setup and the effort that had been put into it.
Good.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Jeff Callahan.
Thank you for having me out here this evening to talk a little bit about some things going on in athletics. But prior to that, I have a shout out I want to give for the career pathways. My 3 children, it wasn't career pathways back then, it was the, or childhood pathways, it was at the Career Center. My 3 kids are graduates of the North Lawrence Vocational School Child Care. And I think they all turned out great, and they're doing great things with the kids over here, I know. I would also like to, on the academic side, give a shout out to the administration, the counselors, and teachers at BNL and North Lawrence Career Center for providing opportunities for students to get college credit by taking classes at BNL and the Career Center. For example, at BNL, 32 dual credit courses are offered and 10 AP courses are offered currently. And the Career Center allows for opportunities for 120 dual credit hours to be earned in various course offerings. Our students have the possibilities of taking advantage of these classes to earn credit for the next level if they're going on to college or to a technical school where they can save their parents. As we all know, if you have kids in college, every little bit helps. And what we have going on at BNL with the AP classes, the Career Center dual credits, and our dual credits at BNL as well are very, very appreciated by, I know, not only myself, but others as well. Just kind of a recap as we're coming to a conclusion of fall sports. We had 225 athletes participate in fall sports this year. Our golf team finished runner-up in the conference, for the girls' golf that is, sectional champs, regional runner-ups, and they finished 15th place at the state finals at Prairie View and Carmel. Our boys cross-country team qualified for the IHSAA regional, and Jonah Bailey qualified for the semi-state this weekend at Brown County. Girls cross-country, Francesco Roscoe qualified for the IHSAA regional as an individual. Our unified flag football team was sectional champions. Our football team last Friday tied for the conference championship, so they're co-champions for this year. And so it's been a pretty productive fall, and winter sports are right around the corner. Now, the next thing I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that go all the way back, and I was looking through some records and things. We brought up the concept of turf all the way back in 2014, and I know that some of you on the board were here when we approved the turf fields at Bedford North Lawrence, and we said we were going to do certain things with those fields and provide opportunities for our kids. And that's what I'm going to go over with you a little bit right now. You can see that on the football side of things, all 4 of those things that we felt were very beneficial for the football program have been met or continuing to be met. And I'm not going to read them to you, and you have this availability on Google Docs or Google Slides. But, you know, it's and everybody on our schedule has turf now. And as a matter of fact, this Friday we go to Shelbyville, and it'll be our first game playing on natural grass. The next slide, the Marching Stars. talked with Jimmy Jones, and I know Eric Berger came many times to talk about how important turf was for the marching band. And if you read all five of those objectives that the band felt this is why turf will benefit our kids, all five of those are currently being met. The one that talks about possibly hosting regionals and state competitions again, they're going to continue to apply for those. Those are very tough to get because they're very prestigious to hold and also money makers for those communities. And so we're hoping to get one of those back in the near future. And the next slide, PE, we had 10 different ones along with other sports. And we're currently, again, checking off each of those objectives. And I can tell you, if you talk to the kids that are in PE2, that go outside and play kickball on the softball field or go down and play ultimate football on the football field, they love it. Before, they weren't able to go outside because we didn't want them on our grass fields because of the wear and tear. And they are absolutely enjoying the opportunities to go outside. And so are the teachers for PE classes. And the next slide. One back. And then, this wasn't even in the original back in 2014-15, but you talk about our softball and baseball fields. Last year, BNL hosted the softball semi-state, and Carrie Rosada, who is the commissioner in charge of softball, absolutely loves our softball setup, the field, the hill, everything that goes along with it, and we will continue to get to host that, even though Center Grove put in every other year with Center Grove. They recently put in a turf field for their softball as well, but because we have so good facilities, especially for softball, they're going to continue to have the IHSAA semi-state here. We'll host the sectional in 2023. If we're fortunate to win the sectional, we will also host the regional, which those things are it's very important to have that home field advantage. And middle school softball was added in 2022. It's difficult. We did have it years ago, but prior to having a turf field, it makes it a little bit more difficult when you're talking about field usage. On the baseball side, just like with softball, able to host more games, tournaments. At BNL, we also hosted the IU baseball club in Big Ten games against Michigan State, Purdue, and also Notre Dame. Hosted the high school fall baseball league seasons in 2021 and 22, and we're looking at the possibilities of hosting middle school baseball in 2023. So those are some of the things and objectives that we put out when the turf project was approved, and you can see that we're striving to achieve and all of those goals to make better opportunities for our student athletes, not only them, but our band members and our student body. And then you talk about usage, and this is just kind of I didn't include 2020 because that was the COVID year and it was a little obviously offbeat. But you can see that prior in 2019, we would have 10 football games, which would be about 3 hours apiece for 30 hours. We'd have 10 days of practice on the game field, and that would be about 15 hours, about an hour and a half each day. 2021 and 22 is after we installed the turf, and you can see that the number of games is still about the same as far as for high school. The hours are about the same as far as games go, but when you look at practice and you look at practice hours, you can see that they have increased dramatically in the number of days, and this is just for the fall, not including anything football does in the spring or summer. Then you can look at the band. The band is able to go outside during the school day now when they have marching band period to be able to use the facility. They also are able to go on Thursday nights or other nights when there's not activities planned at the football field. Middle school football, you can see in 2019, again, it's 2019, 21, and 22. In 2019, we didn't host any games at BNL for middle school football. Last year, we hosted 5 dates, which 7th and 8th grade would be 10 games. This year, we hosted 6 dates for 12 games. Boys and Girls Club football, again, 2019, nothing. Last year, they had more dates and they had more teams last year, so they had more dates and more games. Their numbers are down, but you can see that we hosted 11 dates with 30 games last year and 8 dates this year with 16 games. Soccer, you can see that, again, Last year, we hosted 3 soccer matches, and this year, 3 soccer matches. Our plan is to work the schedule to where we can have more soccer matches on the turf field. But when you talk about band and middle school football and high school football, all my ED friends said the most difficult problem you'll have when you have a turf field is the number of people that want to use it and how much it's used. Big one, homecoming powder puff. We did have that in 2019 on the grass field, and we've had that the last 2 years on the turf. So you can see the total usage, the number of dates, number of events, and then the number of hours. And we're not done this year. We're still got football, obviously. Hopefully we'll continue on to next week and possibly the next week. So these are just through to date for the fall. Spring and summer, you can see practices. And again, on the grass field in 2019, they wouldn't go out there in the summer, in the spring or summer. And you can see that 33 times last year and 36 times this year they were able to utilize the football field for practices. Graduation, we also hosted that in 2022 on the football field. Baseball was about the same as softball, but you can see number of games played has increased. We move games here now if it rains in Salem or Linton or another school that has a grass field and it's rained during the day. We have the opportunity to move those here, and you can see the number of games has increased over the last few years. Outside groups, again, able to use the facilities with youth teams and middle school teams being a part of that. And you can see the fall classes and activities. Number of days outside for PE it continues to increase. I talked with Mr. Horton and Mrs. Harrell and Mr. Yates, and they talked about how their kids love going outside. Just gives them more room to play the games they want to play. If it's kickball, they don't have to worry about kicking it into the rafters or into the lights in the gym. And you can see the number of hours. We also utilize the softball field for Starnival, which is a great program put on by student council. And the kids play kickball. It's like 8 hours of kickball as they come out in different groups. And they monitor, we monitor them, but they monitor who's on what teams and who kicks and all the stuff. It's a great event. If you haven't been out to that, it'll be in the spring, and they do a great job with Starnival. Homecoming kickball on the softball field. That's another thing I would encourage you next year. Homecoming in late September. Come out and watch kickball on the softball field. The kids absolutely love it. And advisory period is new this year, so it really shouldn't be there. I'm sorry. In 2021, it just started this year. But they go out there on Fridays and again use the turf field in some way. So again, that could be softball. Most of it's a softball field, but that could be football. It could be baseball. And you can see pictures there of the 3 fields. That people just continually comment when they come here of how nice the facilities are as far as the actual fields that we have. So that's all I have. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call, shoot me an email, come out. Love to see you come out. Hopefully we'll be at home in a couple weeks in football. If not, hopefully we'll see you in the winter sports season. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Next up, Jennifer Harris and Lindy Decker.
I'm actually Lindy Kelly. There was a little bit of a typo. I think there is or was a Lindy Decker with NLCS at some point, and it's a really rare name. So
Sorry.
it's okay. It happens. Would you mind doing that? Okay, we have some handouts for you. Yes.
And pass them out.
I can do that.
And what's your name? It's not Lindy?
Lindy Kelly.
Lindy, got it.
We are covering TBRI, which is Trust-Based Relational Intervention. That is new to us this year, and I think it's one of the best things we've ever done.
Absolutely.
It is excellent.
It's a trauma-informed training, and the key part of it is helping teachers and staff understand how to recognize students with that have been through adversity and looking at things with a trauma lens. And so all NLCS staff, I think almost all NLCS staff have completed this training. I don't want to read the whole entire slide to you, but it's basically a trauma-informed approach to help us understand how to better serve our students. So the key principles that we are utilizing and implementing in that kind of help establish what we're doing every day in our buildings. The first one is the connecting principles, and that is focused on building relationships with our students. And that would look like having check-ins every day. For example, in Needmore, our teachers stand in the hallway and greet the students every morning as they come in. And they will ask them a check-in question and just to see how they're doing, just to get an idea of how the day is going to go. And that's building that trust and facilitating those relationships. And it would also look like for those students that maybe are having a harder time, or it's harder for the teachers to build those relationships with them, they might spend some extra time with them. It might be a 2 to 3 minute process, but they're checking in with those students multiple times a week just to make sure that they're doing okay. They're talking about things that are not school related. It's to help build that relationship and get to know them on a personal level. It would also look like having check-ins throughout the day to help ease transitions for students. That's something we sometimes put into place when it's needed. We have kiddos that have a hard time switching from one thing to another. And so we'll add those in as needed, taking care of their needs.
Yeah, the glucose needs is a big part of it. So we know we use the term hangry from time to time. And we know it's hard to focus when you don't have your basic needs met. If you're hungry, you're dehydrated, if you haven't had a lot of rest, that can actually lead to further dysregulation. And I'm at Shawswick, and I have actually noticed several of our teachers doing really, really well with the check-ins and with meeting those basic needs of the glucose need, the snacks, the hydration, all of that. So I think this has really helped the teachers be more in tune with those needs and notice those things more.
And it also teaches us as staff to pay attention to our needs. So making sure that we're regulated too. Are we having the opportunity to get a snack or make sure that we have water to use the restroom, those things. Because if we are dysregulated, it's really difficult for us to help regulate a student. So it's paying attention to our own self-regulation as well. The second principle is the empowering principle. So it's supporting students and the educators' self-regulation, like we said. So making sure they're having those movement breaks, incorporating those into their day. That could look like just letting them have the chance to go to the restroom and get a drink of water when they need that. And it would look like having for the younger kids, they do a lot of Go Noodles, giving them that movement. So they're not just sitting for long periods of time. I think our second grade class incorporated an extra recess. It's just kind of a 10, 15-minute break to get them outside, get them that fresh air, and it resets their whole entire morning. And they're then more successful because they've had that time and that opportunity to just reset.
I've also noticed a lot of teachers doing that during lessons. They'll stop and do like a breathing break or something like that, just the smaller things. But I'm going to make you do something a little silly. Make you feel silly. Sorry, we do this all day.
Yeah.
So hold up your hand like this. This is on the last page of your packet that we gave you. This is called the hand-brain model. So this is how we explain regulation to kids, or one of the ways that we do it. So your wrist is your brainstem. And that is focused on survival. So fight, flight, freeze, that kind of thing, your basic body functions. Your thumb is where your little amygdala lives. That is your brain's alarm system. So it tells you if there's something to respond to, danger, threat, whatever. And then your four fingers remaining are your cortex, and those parts of your brain are always touching. And occasionally something will happen, and it happens to all of us, that is just overwhelming to our brains, whatever. We flip our lips. And so that's a really easy way to explain it to the kids, for them to remember. It's natural. It happens to all of us. And then now we can come in and say, what can we do when we recognize we flipped our lid? And so TBRI really brings that part into our classrooms as well to help kids understand that.
So we teach that to our students, and then the teachers also know that. I actually did that lesson today, and the kids really love saying all the big fancy words like amygdala, prefrontal cortex. It's one of my favorite lessons to teach. Oh, yes.
And there's one more.
Go ahead.
We also do the engine plates to help with regulation as well, and you have that in your packets if you'd like to see them. It looks like this, so if any of you have students in the countries, they may have made it, maybe not, but at Shaw's, we have. We've all done it, the kids love it. They're still stashed in several of the students' desks. So, but this is a great tool. So it helps us understand if we're regulated and calm, or if we're tired, need energy, or if we're overwhelmed, we need to calm down.
And we actually made those when we did our training as well. The third principle are the correcting principles. So that's helping students be accountable for their actions. And one of the parts that I love about this is allowing students to have a redo, to relearn that behavior. Sometimes we make the assumption that they should just know better, and a lot of times they don't. And so we can remind them that, okay, do we know that we did something wrong? And if we know that they didn't, then they get the chance to redo that. And that's relearning that behavior, which is creating a new neural pathway in their brain. And it's helping them to remember to do that moving forward. And that is something that I see the teachers doing all the time. And that correlates really well with the PBIS that we implement too, with the positive language and reminding them to go back and do it the right way. And that's helping them. It empowers them, and it empowers the teachers too to know, okay, we've practiced that now, so we should be doing okay with that.
All right, we have had consultation with a company called Hope Alight. Allie Chance is who's been doing that for us. She's been phenomenal. She's done all our trainings for us, and then our consultations in the buildings with the teachers and staff. So we are able to actually revisit the key principles. We're able to talk about what's going well, any questions that we have, address any challenges, and then we can brainstorm ideas for strategies to implement in classrooms. And there are specific classroom lesson plans. So 3 of the documents in the back of that packet are actually elementary level lesson, or not just elementary, but lessons for the classroom that we can use to help teach these principles to kids, and they're a lot more in the binder here. So these are really great for use in classrooms with small groups, with individual students, however we need to use them. They're really easy to adapt.
And the teachers are using those, we as the counselors use those, and so and some of the lessons are maybe a 10-minute. So they're getting that all the time, and just a great way for them to continue practicing those skills. So we are nearing the goal of 100% of NLCS teachers, everyone being trained. The training takes 2 days, and we have regulation breaks, a lunch break, you get fidgets to play with, you make really cool things like your engine plate, you have snacks. It really was a fantastic training. And all of the things that you take away now, seeing it implemented into the building just tells us how phenomenal it is and how much we needed it. It's okay.
Let us draw your attention especially to the last 2 rows. Buy-in was huge. So you can see openness, when we started it, it was pretty decent. But by the end of training, a lot of our teachers and staff saw, wow, this is really beneficial. And I think in part was because, one, we really got to dig in and be hands-on with the training, and ask a lot of questions, have some good discussion, and 2, because they're seeing these strategies work in the classroom, and that is huge. So I don't know if you see that same number on every training that we do, but this is really encouraging to us as a counselor and a social worker. You know, we do a lot with the kids already, but just to have the teachers feel more confident, not to have to call us for everything, they're able to manage things in their classroom that they might not have felt comfortable doing before. This is great.
And I think the ongoing consultation too contributes to that as well, because it's not just a one and done. We're continuing to implement those strategies. We can go back and revisit the principles and talk about those. And if we have questions or something wasn't working, Allie does such a good job of helping us, rethink a way to try that again. Or we brainstorm together as a team to say, oh, well, this was working really well for this kiddo. We can try this here now. So I think that the consultation too pairs well with that, and it's helped us see how successful that this training is.
attention to something that's available to parents of students in NLCS and even future students that are coming in. So it doesn't even have to be a current NLCS student. We have 2 free evenings of parent training, November 3rd and 10th. Of course, you guys are welcome to attend that as well. So it can be done virtually from 6 to 8 p.m. Or there is an in-person offering at Lincoln Elementary. There will be childcare and dinner, which is great. So if you need to bring your kids, that's perfectly okay. And then community partners will be available just to provide other resources. You can see a listing there. Super, super exciting. So, and there is the flyer for that. If you scan the QR code, you can register to attend and say, yes, I'm planning to attend virtually, or sorry, in person, so we can have a head count of who's coming.
And one of the benefits of the parent training is that it would just provide that consistency in language and a lot of the strategies that we're using at school. It would give parents those same strategies to try at home. And so then that consistency and structure just across the board helps students feel more safe and secure, and they know what to expect. So I'm so excited for the parents to be able to participate in this as well.
We definitely want the parents to feel, all our parents to feel empowered.
Yes.
Because they are such an important part of our school system, and they do bring a lot to our schools in general. Well, this is
yes.
this is an option for you guys to attend.
Yes.
Staff training on TBRI, so you can see the dates up there. Mark those on your calendar. You will definitely want to attend. I wish that everyone could do this, so please don't miss it. And yeah, lunch, that's always a good incentive. Like, it's not as good as cookies, I think, but
Snacks, fidgets.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Do you have any questions? Thank you.
That's
guys.
great. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Moving on, item F, persons to address the board relative to the agenda. Thank you. First up, Scott King.
Good evening. I'd just like to say thank you to whoever put these last 4 presentations on the agenda. I was actually going to come tonight and ask if you were going to have something on the Career Center after the industry days they just had. So it's really nice to see that. I've also been kind of researching the TBIR. I know it's new, and it's good to hear what's going on. I was going to ask about feedback, and they said it's overwhelmingly positive feedback, so that's good news as well. I hope at the end of the school year they get more feedback, because my main concern is if and how it impacts the learning process. The teachers are well trained and it works, because it's kind of based on breaks, and I just wonder what those breaks do to the learning process. So appreciate you guys having that on the agenda tonight.
Let's go.
Thank you, Ms. Cole.
Next up, Kayla Hoffman.
Kayla Hoffman, 1087 Kentucky Hollow Road, Bedford. I realize that you don't have to answer my questions, but I do have a question before I start. My question being, there's a vote on the capital projects plan and the bus replacement plan tonight. I'm curious when board members were provided a copy of each of those to review for the vote tonight. Okay.
I think we were given those most of those we were given on Monday, early part of this week.
To the board?
I have to look.
I think that's what it was in the agenda. So.
I just want to make sure I understand what you said correctly. So what you just said was that the board was sent a copy of the capital projects plan and the bus replacement plan on Monday?
I actually think they were available to us on October the 7th. We get those and it's up to the board we get those in the docs, so it's up to them to see those and to review them, but I believe it was October the 7th. I would have to go back and look.
So board members would have had to go in on their own.
Well, that we
No,
get,
it's
we
sent
get
to
no-
us in the
Yeah,
agenda.
it gets sent to us, and we know that it's there, and we go in and look at it, so,
Okay, and that was October 7th.
I believe so.
So prior to that, you wouldn't have had any knowledge of those?
I don't know.
I mean, I think we had talked about them, but I don't think we had access to the documents until then.
Okay, so if they were talked about, they weren't talked about in a meeting, public meeting, I would guess. Okay, that answers my question. On September 15th, during that meeting, the notice that was posted on Gateway indicated that there would be time for public hearing on the capital projects plan and the bus replacement plan. And that didn't happen. After the last meeting, I spoke with Dr. Mungle about this, and one of the things that he stated to me was that because the capital projects come out of operations, that the plan is not necessary anymore. And he claimed to me that that changed about 4 years ago. Even though the previous 2 years, I went back and reviewed, and those were things that were reviewed in a public meeting by Janice Roan. It was public input time. So when I went back to the notice on Gateway and read it, the statement says, taxpayers are invited to attend the meeting for a detailed explanation of the plan and to exercise their rights to be heard on the proposed plan. If the proposed plan is adopted by resolution, the resolution will be submitted to the Department of Local Government Finance as per Indiana Code. So I decided I better look at Indiana Code. And it says if a school corporation wants to use money in the operations fund during the year to pay for any items listed in section 7 of this chapter that are considered capital in nature, the governing body must adopt a resolution approving the plan or amended plan. So that's what you're doing tonight, I'm assuming. What I'm not sure about is why the notice posted on Gateway said that there would be a detailed explanation given, and there was not. Nobody on the board, nobody in administration brought up either of those plans. There was a presentation about the budget in general, which obviously, if those funds come out of operations, then that makes sense that those are kind of covered under that blanket. So on a technicality, perhaps things were covered, but I believe, based on what Dr. Mungle told me, part of what he told me was false in that that's not required. If it wasn't required, why was it posted on Gateway that the Indiana Code said that you would do it and that you were intending to do it, and it didn't happen? So I did reach out to the Department of Local Government Finance, a representative, and he indicated to me that basically the statute isn't really clear. So again, a technicality. The statute's not real clear on exactly how that needs to be done. But he did defer back to the public access counselor, because I have also been in contact with him about this, who originally referred me to the Department of Local Government Finance. So he referred me back to the public access counselor regarding an opinion on how the meeting should be conducted to discuss the plans. And I received an email back from Mr. Britt today, and sorry, I thought I had it pulled up here. We'll get it real quick. I apologize. I thought I had everything lined up, but I've got a lot of different emails here. Mr. Britt said, if I'm following your inquiry correctly, I would offer that, and this is just to inform you of my communications with him. I never know if my emails that I send to you get read because I don't get responses most of the time. But he says, if I'm following your inquiry correctly, I would offer that any initiative, regardless of whether a hearing is necessary by statute, should be accompanied by robust discussion in a live public setting before any measure is passed. That discussion should be between board members so that the public knows their thought processes and the work that goes into the decision-making process. This isn't just a hollow platitude, it serves the board members as well. Discussion can be a demonstration that they are the right people for the job and that they are being good stewards of the public's trust and resources. Even if the ultimate decision doesn't always please everyone, you sometimes get a little credit for at least showing your work. In the majority of contexts, votes without context or dialogue are merely performative and serve no one. So, on the heels of a school board election and 2 incumbents running, I would encourage you to be more aware of the processes. It seems to me that if there was supposed to have been discussion on September 15th, that the board would have received these plans long before what was the 7th of October. Again, I'm not a professional. School finance is hard, but I managed to work my way through that and get a couple good responses from people at the state level. So I appreciate you listening, and hopefully you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Lacey Hawkins.
Good evening. I wasn't planning to speak to you tonight, but knowing that there are lots of people who have questions about the contract negotiation, I wanted to try to provide as much more information as possible, and also volunteer that I'm happy to stick around and answer questions for anybody who has them. So generally speaking, what we looked at for this negotiation was it was a reopener. It's not a traditional contract negotiation year. We had hoped, because of consolidation, there would be more money to work with for this year. So last year, when we negotiated the contract, we negotiated a reopener to come back and look at that money. And so this was an opportunity to do that. So with that money, we did a couple different things. We mostly tried to focus on making corrections from years where we had experienced freezes. I think there's a lack of historical context sometimes on how those things happen. Those freezes mostly happened under a previous superintendent and previous funding situations. So over the last couple of years, it has not been perfect. We've been making very small gains. This was a year to catch up for those years. So we mostly took those people who had been left behind and caught them up. What that looked like was, I'm sorry, I was back there like cramming spreadsheet numbers, that there were 267 teachers, 267 employees that we were looking at their salaries. 127 of those were on the correct step. And what that mostly means is people who were hired in recently and didn't experience those freezes. Because we haven't been frozen in the recent years. So those people have gotten those steps. There were 140 teachers, though, 140 employees who needed those new placements. Just moving them, just putting them, looking at the salary schedule and where they were supposed to be, moved 140 people anywhere from $799 to $6,517. So some of those gains, some of those people were tremendously far behind. Once we put them where they needed to be, we then took them and shifted them over to the new ERB compliance schedule. I know that there has been a lot of confusion, and I think some of that gets stoked on social media about what that means to move to a new schedule. But when you deal with contract negotiation, which this is my 4th, I think, round of this, not counting reopeners, so that might be more, that it's complicated, that ERB changes the rules for us pretty constantly on what expectations are. And we have met them. We have done our best to do what was right for teachers. I've been serving in this position since 2017. This is my 3rd term that I've been elected to represent the teachers. And I will be up for re-election at the end of this one. We'll see how that goes. But this year we needed to make the steps equidistant from each other. We needed to get the bottom to 40, and we needed to move all those teachers off that old schedule to the new schedule. Once we put the teachers on the right step, we moved them to the new schedule. In moving them to the new schedule, that our goal was for every teacher to make more money. So not only did they make more money because they got caught up, they made more money because they moved to a new higher step, a new bigger step. Just moving from the old schedule to the new schedule, right? This is like they're caught up, they're making what they're supposed to be making now. We're going to move them to the new schedule. That gained teachers an average increase of about $1,454. What that means across the board for 267 teachers is that over the 267 teachers, there was an average increase of $3,179. So the average increase was around $3,000 for teachers. Now, that said, teachers at the top of the schedule did not get the gains that I wanted them to get. We have budgetary constraints. There are 72 teachers at the top of the schedule. If you talk about giving them even $1,000 more, that's $72,000. That's tremendous amounts of money when you're working with a budget that's about $800,000 and you're trying to catch up teachers who are sometimes $6,000 behind. So what ended up happening for those teachers at the top of the schedule is they all moved to a new schedule, and that gave them a $540 increase. And then we negotiated a $460 stipend to go with it to make it an even $1,000. That's not great. That's about what they would have gotten had they gotten their step on the old schedule. That's not great. That's not what I wanted, but it is something, and I think it was the right direction. I don't want people to think I don't care about the people at the top of the schedule, because I grew up here. My second grade teacher, my sixth grade teacher, my middle school art teacher, my high school history teacher still teach here, and I'm loyal to them, and they're all at the top of the schedule. So I'm going to talk about, like, we cared about it, and everybody on that bargaining team cared about it. The bargaining team, the officers, we lost sleep. We've been a nervous wreck. I've got 4 students back there who will tell you that this is not common for me to be so frazzled. But ultimately, I believe working on this salary schedule for the reopener was the right thing. I think we did the best we could under the circumstances that we had. Insurance increases, I don't think were really talked about as part of contract negotiation. There was a 7.82 increase to our insurance. That's out of our control. That's insurance companies. In negotiations, North Lawrence is going to pay 50% of that increase for all teachers who are on the insurance plan. And then depending on the plan they're on, anywhere, the plans that cost the most, that are going to get hit the hardest, will get anywhere from $282 to $560 on top of that 50% coverage for the increase. Insurance is always a frustration. I tip my hat to Logan Feltz because he does our representation for the insurance team, and it's painful. Insurance is just never an easy thing. So we've tried to mitigate the costs there as well. Again, if there's anything that I can do to answer questions, I will happily explain how salary steps work, how schedules work, how movement to the new scale works, to anybody who has questions about that.
Lacey, just because you can articulate it well, explain, because it's so backwards.
Sure.
That you had a contract in August, but we're negotiating it now.
Sure.
State has to approve it by 15th of November or something like that.
Yes.
And now we have to go back and pay you.
Back, yeah.
So what was discussed as far as the negotiation? I think I know, but how now they're going to go back to, because I think different schools do it different ways.
Sure.
Some will take that increase and divide it out over the rest of the contract. How are we doing it?
Go
ahead.
Yeah, in the past, we've done one payment and then we've divided it out. It's actually something that, as we send an email out, you're just a little bit ahead of us. But that's something that Logan and Lacey and I work out, obviously, with the business office.
But it's a bad situation. If they could fix that to be able to have negotiations in the spring so that we can then right out of the gate in August.
Yeah. And we are set to
backwards.
Dates. That's why we have to announce that we're going to have bargaining. We have bargaining. We have to announce that we've reached a collective or a a tentative agreement, and then we announce that it's going to the board, and then the board votes, and
Hearing.
it's a lot.
In our
And it
budget,
does
and we
push it
not
back.
knowing 100% what we're going to receive when you start
That will change in
negotiation. I mean, it's just
February
really,
too, with your count dates.
really
Your budget it changes throughout the year because you have a second count day in February. And I think, again, that's something that is not so easy, is to look on a screen and say like, well, that's our money. Well, no, that's our projected money, because we don't know what our money is until we do that second count day. So we are working with a kind of unknown number. We're working with a number that we hope is the right number, because nobody wants to end up not being able to meet your salary obligations. I kind of nodded to Dr. Mungle on this one, because in the past, that's how we've done it. We've done a lump sum payment. It usually comes around the end of the year, but we haven't had a chance to sit down and kind of talk out the details of that. It's how it's, in my memory, how it's always been done that way.
And then we'll open it again next year, because this wasn't a 2-year contract, and we'll shoot for a 2-year contract next year.
That is correct.
I have, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna ask, for the ones at the top of the pay scale that they've got the increase to salary and then the stipend, will that stipend be considered salary in that when we're looking at like your top pay
Yes.
for your retirement purposes?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, all money earned in your 5 highest paying years counts for that.
Okay.
So if a teacher participates in a professional development and gets a stipend for
Okay,
that,
that all
that counts.
counts
If
too.
they do a
ECA or-
ECA, that counts. All of it's-
Historically, we didn't do that in the past. I don't believe
Okay,
it.
that is how it is now, so,
good.
but yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
So when I first looked at this, I thought each step was like per year. But that's not correct.
No, so.
So
in-
how does that, so if a
Yes.
teacher's at step D,
Correct,
how do they know, what has to happen for them to get to E?
sure. This depends.
Because I
So,
really don't, I
right,
mean, I
understand
really
that.
don't know.
So it's starting around 2012 is when our contract laws started getting really complicated. If you started teaching before 2012, you had this idea that you'd have a salary schedule, and that, next year you'd be here, and 5 years
Right.
you'd be here, and 10 years you'd
That's
be here. And that kind of went out the window around the same time as a lot of the big changes that we've seen, with rise evaluations and school funding, how funding was changed. All of that kind of came in around 2012. So it's one of the reasons that on the salary schedule, the state changed the numbers that used to be on the side to letters, which is frustrating as a teacher, because it feels like they think we're too dumb to be able to go A, B, C, D, like I can count the letters. But the reason for that is that because funding has been so unstable, a lot of schools have had to make major changes to their salary schedule. So for example, our old salary schedule, it wasn't even possible then to count and say, I've been here 13 years, I'm on the 13th letter, because freezes had happened and people had gotten pushed around. So when we created the new schedule, what we did, like I said, we placed people where they should have been had there not been freezes. We looked at the old schedule and said, I started in 2009 on 1A, right? And in 2010, I should have been on 1B. And you count down to 2014 when I got my master's, and then I go over to 2H, I think, right? And then I go down, and I should be on 2M, I think, because I have to look at it again. And then we took that number, right, and said, okay, Lacey Hawkins should be making X amount, and every single teacher, 267 of them, right? This is where they should be. And we moved them over to the new salary schedule, which is ERB compliant, had to start at 40, had to be equidistant steps. Our old schedule did neither of those things. So if you look at the new schedule, it's not possible to go from, like I've been here 13 years, to go from 13 letter here to 13 letter on the new one. Because if you look at that, that's a
Right.
50, I think that's 52,000. That's a $6,000 increase. And there are 267 of us. So, think too about that our bottom step used to be 35,750, is that right? We took all those teachers, and I didn't write that number down, but there's a bunch who were on 35,750, and we moved them all to 40. Anybody who was making less than 40, we moved at least to 40, and then several to 41, 42. If you take those teachers who are at the old step A, and you move them to 40, if you look at the old schedule, That's 7 steps in, I believe, before you hit 40, right? That means those teachers made a 7-step jump, right? To make it where everybody got to go from like, I'm on the 6th letter, I'm gonna go to the 6th letter, that would have meant every teacher would have had to get a 6-step jump. It's not. That's $1.8 million to do that. It's again, not within our budget. So what we did is we made sure everybody made the most amount of money they could. That in some cases meant that teachers went, I don't even want to say back a letter because it's kind of silly to, like, they kind of don't matter.
It looks that way, but
It
they're
looks that
getting
way,
more
yeah.
money.
Yes, so, these teachers who are making salary increases of $3,000, the letters, the reason the state doesn't call them numbers anymore is because they don't equate to years, right? Your salary is, you hire in at a salary and you get more every year. You get a negotiated raise. And that's what we do. We don't negotiate the letter that you're on. We negotiate you more money because teachers need to be paid more. And we're going to keep pushing that direction each time.
That helped, thank you.
Sure. And again, I'd be happy to
Yeah.
go over specifics if you need.
You mentioned you had 4 students here.
I do.
Would you like to not acknowledge them for being here?
These guys, they were super nervous about being here.
Stand up, stand up.
They're precious.
Let's make them more nervous.
Oh, stand up. Yeah, look at them.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. They're actually here for government class, but they're, so, no, it's required. Kind of. For government, they have to do something that participates in city government, and this is an option. And I'm glad they're here. I like for them to see how schools work, so, and how we do business, so.
Thank you for being here.
I also want to give a shout out to Jennifer and Lindy because the TBRI stuff is super cool and I use it all the time, and we would be a lot better if more of us used our frontal cortexes. And there's a lot of lid flipping out there, so I'm a fan and I'm a believer and I use it in class all the time. So
Thank you. Thank you, Lacey. Moving on, item G, personnel.
I'm asking the board to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Item H. Claims and payroll.
Like the board's approval for claims and payroll since the last board meeting, and I do not have that amount. I passed it.
I've got it,
But I'd like to verbalize it.
it is $6,000,000.
$6,914,616.10.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Collier makes a motion and a second.
Second.
Mr. Gerges seconds the motion. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Item 2, approval. Yes, MBA support claim.
Permission for the board to approve the MBA support plan, which will assist us with our state reports, Power School, a lot of what we're doing here. This is a model that Jasper's done. We visited with them, and so we're looking forward to their support.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Bailey makes a motion and a second.
Second.
Mr. Gerges seconds the motion. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Item 3.
Next, a little bit with TBRI, not exactly, but we have 5 social emotional counselors / social workers that IU Health is willing to pay through a grant for them to attend a state conference in Kansas City. So this is an opportunity that IU Health is providing our employees, and just need board's approval for that.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So
Motion.
Got a motion and a second.
Second.
Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Next,
Item 4.
approve the adoption of the fiscal year 2023 budget resolutions, capital projects, and bus replacement plans.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Blomberg makes the motion in a second.
Second.
Mr. Bailey seconds the motion. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Item 5.
The only thing that I'll share briefly, the school bus replacement plan is very easy. One year we purchased 2 buses, and the next year we have proposed to replace 3.
That we can't get.
So, that we can't get. Takes 18 months to get them. We've recently done 3, so hopefully we'll have them by about a year from now. But the school bus replacement plan is fairly simple, just rotates, and obviously the others just roofing and HVAC, which we've discussed primarily. So, next up is approval to increase base contract for contracted bus drivers. We are going to look at the base contract amount of what was done 2.5 years ago for our bus drivers, and just give a 5% increase on that per, it'll be on their daily rate. So I think this will provide those contracted bus drivers some additional compensation, and I think they're, as we've looked at all of our different employee groups, and I think just appreciate everything that they do, and so many others do, but it's a way that we can provide some additional compensation.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mr. Blomberg makes the motion in a second.
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
The only thing that I just would like to share, next month, we will have a presentation from BNL. I don't know if you've been able to see or if you followed. They received certification as an early college high school, which is outstanding. It's a little bit what Mr. Callahan was referencing, all of the opportunities that our students have to earn those credits. So they had the 3E Expo, but they will be presenting next month. And also Mr. Bodie is going to give just a brief update on transportation and kind of just number of buses and where we're at, and kind of how things look from that transportation standpoint. I do want to, again, personally thank and recognize everyone with Playful Pathways. They've done a tremendous amount of moving, support, help. I know the licensure, it took 6 visits. Yesterday was the last visit of the 6 to get through the licensure. I think we're truly blessed. I know the Indiana Department of Education is going to come down, and they want to tour Dr. Flores, who is the assistant superintendent, will be down here next week to tour the facility, and just very excited about it. But I can't say enough to everyone that's been involved in that. It's going to impact thousands of lives. We have school psychs in that buildings. We have OTs, PTs, speech language pathologists, a tremendous amount of resources. The Career Center, it's come a long way in 4 years. I don't know if, as some of you remember, we were having monthly conversations with the Department of Ed, and I think we were going through lots of different things, but to have only the 5 or 6 openings in all of the programs that we had, I didn't want to put Mrs. Redmond on the spot because I really wanted her to read every program that we have in that building. And it's like we keep looking for more, even with the law enforcement that we've added, and it's maxed out. And now they're talking to the Shawswick Fire Department and looking at what we can do to help in the fire prevention area. It's outstanding. I think even the number of students, it is a goal. You saw a lot of what our athletes and the number that participate. I know Mr. Callahan pushes the participation of athletics, but we need to remember the band. I know both of our band instructors, directors are not here tonight, but the band has had an outstanding year. They're at Franklin on Saturday with the state competition, which is great, and even the number of students that we have participating in the ECAs. The TBRI, for us to get our custodians, bus drivers, administrators, teachers, and the response that we're having and that type of professional development and training, you just don't see that every day. And it speaks so highly of the North Lawrence employees and just how they've embraced that. And we have several that are teachers that are doing parent-teacher conferences tonight as well. And I know that is going on this week, so I just want to remember those teachers too, as they give up their evenings with the parent-teacher conferences, and of course the 3E Expo. There's just lots of positive things that sometimes, I know many of the schools are so busy doing the work that they don't take the time to share the information, or that it's not out there, or it doesn't get shared. But we are just so blessed with some outstanding principals, teachers, support staff, and so much more that is going on for our students. So I just wanted to share those things and let you know what presentations would be next month.
Thank you. Item I, persons to address the board. I don't have any other comment cards.
I've got one more thing. No, you're fine.
I didn't fill out a card. I didn't know I had a question until I heard the agenda, so I know we're running on time, so I'll be brief. Ross Lester, 2333 Old State Road, 37 North. Just had two quick questions. So one, with the capital projects, can you guys give any insight to how those monies will be spent? If there is a plan at this point? We heard a lot about, because those are actually pegged to the bonds, right? We heard a lot of discussion about renewing the bonds, securing those bonds. It would be nice to hear a little bit about how we are spending that money, or plan to if we have a plan.
A lot of those conversations will happen once we, by law, are required to hire an architect and a construction management firm
To take it out.
with those types of amounts. And until you really get the bids and they walk you through that process and the board engages with the architects and the engineers, then we will kind of have a much better understanding.
So we really, as
At
we
this
sit tonight,
point,
we haven't committed to
we
use
haven't
them on
commi-
anything.
No, we haven't committed to anything.
And my second quick question is, and I do agree, came from a parent-teacher conference tonight. Appreciate all the efforts of the teachers staying late to meet with parents to make sure that their students are getting the attention and the care that they deserve. So I appreciate all that extra effort on top of the hours they put in. My last question is with regard to communicating with the teachers. Powerful tool that we had last year was an app that we could actually communicate with the teacher. There were some issues with that. It wasn't perfect, but it was used, and the plan was to replace that this year. And I keep hearing it's coming. I'm wondering if we can get an update now that we're starting the second 9 weeks on that new app being rolled out, or when we should expect it.
We are getting very close to being able to roll out Blackboard. Blackboard has finally provided us some of the support that we've needed to start tying it into our system. It has to talk to our Power School system, which is our student management system, but we are getting very close. Mr. Calhoun is working on that. One of the problems has been a little bit is a change in personnel from the Blackboard side of it, who they had employed to assist us, is no longer employed. But we are getting very close. I anticipate next week we had some conversations about sending some tests out and doing some things as we get closer to winter. Not only that we would send, or I would send out from this office, that would go to all of our schools and all of our students, but then also trying to send some tests out at each of the other schools. So I anticipate the next 2 or 3 weeks that you'll start to get some feedback.
Okay, that is a powerful tool that
It
makes
is.
everybody's life more efficient,
yeah.
teachers and parents, so, thank you.
I have one more thing. Kayla Hoffman again. For Ross, upgrade audio at the Pack and Schaefer Auditorium, replace bleachers at softball, baseball fields, upgrade fueling center and transportation, parking lot repair and painting lines, HVAC repairs, and playground maintenance and repairs. That's what you were looking for on the capital projects plan. It's listed on here. You have to go digging for it, kind of, but it's there. Check it on.
It's all things that we have estimates for.
It's in the plan.
But we have estimates for it.
Approved of that plan.
Yeah, we haven't approved to do those things.
Okay, thank
We hope to, just
Okay.
like if we have estimates for
understand,
those
Tracy.
things and we have
They're dreams.
a boiler roll up someplace,
I
now we have to do
understand.
that.
No sense.
I understand. Dr. Mungle, you said that some of the capital projects ideas had been discussed earlier when you were speaking to the board. You talked about HVAC and other things. You said we've discussed that. Have those discussions taken place in executive session? Or do they?
We've had discussions out here.
You have not?
Yeah.
You have not? I've gone through hours of audio, minutes. It's not there. So your claim is that it has taken place in these meetings, so I should be able to track it down somewhere. I've just missed it.
Well, we have a building with a new roof, and we have a building with a new HVAC system
That's not my,
in the high school.
I don't have any objection to anything on the capital projects plan, nor the bus replacement plan, because I know that those are things that are set in motion. I have no objection to those. What I have an objection to is.
They're not set in motion. Nothing has been set in motion.
The bus
Those are
replacement
just
plan hasn't
possible
existed for more than a
expenditures.
year? The bus replacement plan has not existed for, up until now?
Yes, it's had that, but we
Okay,
haven't
that is what I'm saying.
but
Like,
we-
I don't want you
we
to
haven't
argue with me
voted
about
to-
what I already know. But you're saying the discussions have happened about capital projects.
Some discussions have happened about that.
Okay, do those happen in email exchanges or executive session, or is that something you can't tell me?
Before anything is done, it is always done in a public meeting. Just like when the HVAC work was done down here at Stalker and out at the auxiliary gym.
Okay, I understand before work is done. I am asking you,
Before any decision is made, all
Discussions.
decisions are made out here.
obviously, discussions is what I'm asking. When the discussion takes place, when you sit down with board members or whoever and say, these are the things that are in the capital projects plan, or these are the things that are in the budget, or whatever. Have discussions taken place in executive session or via emails between the board members regarding those things that I listed to Mr. Lester?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he talks a lot about it.
Yep.
Next up, I would just like to say, I, on behalf of the board, I appreciate Shelley Pritchett, Jeff Callahan, Amy Redmond, Lindy Harris, or Lindy Kelly, and Jennifer Harris being here, and obviously Lacey Hawkins, your input on the contract, and thank you to the students that are here. It's always, we like to hear these positive things at a school board meeting, school board public meeting, so we appreciate that tonight. Upcoming meetings, there'll be a regular meeting on
It'd be Monday.
date, not the regular meeting, right?
Well,
Date and time to be
it'll be
announced,
done
so
at
it will
the
be
regular.
Monday at
5:30.
5:30 at the NLCS Administration Building. There will be an executive session at 5:15 PM and a regular session at 6:30 PM on Thursday, November 17th, 2022 at the NLCS Administration Building. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
A motion and a second.
Sure, second.
All in favor?